also go along with that talk. Everyone's cooperating today and really like that. I'm gonna start with a story. Or, you know, I
Doesn't
don't
really
need
sound like it
Everyone
is. You want to lift up the camera. You're taller than the rest of us, so. That's,
Okay.
that's
You
good.
do need it, Larry, for us in the back.
That's good.
Hello?
Not on. Yeah.
That was my job to turn that on, but come on. She's getting even with here for earlier. So there's this father and son, and they're driving home from an outing that they had where they went fishing all day, and now it's nighttime and they're coming home. They're going back to their flat in Brooklyn. Yeah. And the son was explaining to the father what he didn't like about the 10 Commandments. He claimed that they were negative, and besides that, he didn't like anyone telling him what to do and what not to do, especially what not to do. He didn't like it. He went on and on about this, and the father just listened quietly. Soon they came to an intersection, and the father turned left instead of turning right, like he should have. He turned the wrong way. And this greatly disturbed the son. He couldn't understand how his father could make such an idiotic mistake. So the father admitted, well, yes, I turned the wrong way. I understand that, but I just absolutely cannot stand signposts telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Or where to go. It's just not gonna happen. And the son's going, you got to be kidding, right? No, I'm not. His father came back. The 10 Commandments are God's signposts, showing us the way back into his glorious presence. You know the alternative. The son snorted, a sign of weakening that the father decided. Then the son asked, but why? Why do you keep them? Tell me that. Answer that one question, and I'll maybe consider using them as a guide in my life. The father smiled. As you well know, I am an engineer by trade, and so I have developed a love for order, a world full of unbreakable laws. For this reason, the 10 Commandments make perfect sense. They create order in my life. They are the law of God. Order? There has to be a better reason, something behind order, something beyond it. So please, tell me why. Tell me a better why. How come this matters so much to you? The father's getting kind of frustrated. He should have been frustrated long before this. He was patient. Now he's frustrated. They exist. They were written on stone tablets by the finger of God. You've seen the picture on the ceiling, you know, and he says, because of this, I shall keep them without hesitation. No questions asked. And he had, what is a stiff upper lip? We say that when someone is being stubborn. You know, he's just stubbornly determined to keep his view. They turned right, heading back towards their flat. Let me tell you a story, the father said. When I was younger, I worked for a company as an engineer, of course. And the president of the company called me into his office, and he said, you allowed us to make a wrong decision, which cost us a considerable amount of money. But sir, certainly you remember that I told you not to do that, not to make that decision. The president replied, yes, I know, but you didn't pound the table when you said it. The Lord didn't make that mistake when he gave the 10 Commandments. He pounded the table. It says there right in the Holy Bible that there were thunderings and lightnings on Mount Sinai that day. That's pounding the table. God wanted to be heard, and I seriously doubt that the Lord has changed his mind since then. Therefore, this is the Father still speaking. In case you think this is me talking to my son John, no, not. Therefore, I will keep the Ten Commandments without hesitation, completely and truly. Unruffled by this in the least, the son comes back with this. I've noticed that you turned and we're headed once again back to our flat. So, the bad turn you took was actually only a detour. The father nodded shyly as one who had been found out. The son said, this reminds me of when we got lost in one of those endless rural roads in Maine last summer on our vacation. The son, continues with the story. The father said, oh my goodness, you mean that time when we were lost and there was this old man sitting in his rocking chair, rocking on this rickety old porch, and I asked him how to get back to Lincolnville. Yes, that's the time. Yes, that's right. And you asked him how far it was. And the old man replied, farther than you can imagine, because you're going in the wrong direction. Then I should turn around, you said. Did I do that accent pretty good? Anyone from Maine?
Oklahoma.
They're all related. Oops, I didn't say that. Then I should turn around. If I'm gonna go to Lincolnville, which road should I take? Well, yes, turn around, then after going a ways, you'll come to a road where Elijah's barn used to be. You'll be turning right, and that'll take you all the way to the swamp. Except in this time of year, it's dry. Turn there, and the road will take you back to Beach Road, and then you'll know your way from there. The father is like, where the barn used to be, I'm gonna turn on a road where the barn used to be, and the swamp, the old man added. The son seemed finished with his story, folded his arms, and went quiet. What's your point, son? You didn't turn like the old man said to, but you took the next left, you made it out of there all the same. It's the same with the 10. If we've made a mistake, let's call breaking one of the 10 a mistake, then that's only a detour, not a dead end. Are you saying that it's okay to break the 10 commandments? The father's, this is argumentative. No, but I'm saying it happens. No, it doesn't. I've never broken even one of them all the days of my long life. That sounds like your typical dad. So the son says, what about last year's tax report? We won't talk about taxes. There was silence. The only sound was the traffic which surrounded them on all sides. At last, the son came to the point he'd meant to make all along. He said out of the blue, breaking into his father's thoughts. The way to keep the 10 without even knowing what they are is by following another set of laws, ones which are easier on the ear. Now you're going to write your own 10 commandments? No, not I. Someone else beat me to it. Jesus wrote them. The father raised his eyebrows as if to say, continue. Instead of a list of thou shalt not laws, he taught us thou shalt. Oh, what? What did he say? The father suddenly is becoming a little interested. Thou shalt forgive. Thou shalt have compassion, not just for your friends, but for all. Thou shalt pray always. And one single thou shalt not. Thou shalt not judge. If we keep these commandments, the son is still talking. No, I'm talking. The son is talking. I'm really getting mixed up. Okay, the son is still telling the story. The story is almost to its end, and I'll go on with my talk. But I like doing this. By the way, I just made the story up. Usually I steal all my material in case you hadn't noticed. I'm getting better at this, and this one's on me. But so thou shalt not judge. If we keep the commandments, the 10, if we keep these commandments, the thou shalt, the 10 will take care of themselves. We won't think of killing someone if we love them, or stealing while in the middle of a prayer. If we follow the teachings of Jesus, we will obey the 10 without trying. That is what Jesus meant when he said this to the lawyer. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And this second is likened to it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. This is in Matthew chapter 22. Jesus replaced the 10 with the 2. I follow the 2. And thus ended the debate between father and son. It was a tie, but not really. Imagine with me for a moment what it was like to be at the foot of Mount Sinai when Moses is up there talking to the Lord. The Bible said, there were thunders and lightnings and thick cloud as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. Then they heard the voice of God as if it was a trump, and the people trembled. That's Exodus chapter 19. That's a lot of table pounding. Maybe we better keep the 10 commandments just to be on the safe side. But let me make this clear. I'm not saying not to keep the 10 commandments. Please do. In fact, make sure that you do. But wouldn't it be easier to keep them if we knew why? Jesus told us why. Edward Martin wrote a poem. Within my earthly temple there is a crowd. There's one of us that's humble, one that's proud. There's one that's brokenhearted for his sins. There's one that's unrepentant, sits and grins. There's one that loves his neighbor as himself, and one that cares for naught but fame and wealth. How can I determine which is me? It is the half of me which sets me free. Now, put another way. Jehovah said, thou shalt not be proud. Jesus said, thou shalt be humble. Jehovah said, thou shalt not sin. Jesus said, thou shalt have a broken heart. Jehovah said, thou shalt not be self-centered. Jesus said, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. Jehovah said, thou shalt not be in bondage to your natural self, the little self. Jesus said, thou shalt be free. What is freedom? One of President Lincoln's favorite Bible quotes was, judge not that you be not judged. Matthew chapter 7. And probably a few other places. When the people of the northern states spoke harshly of those in the South during the war, President Lincoln said, don't criticize them. They are just what we would be under certain similar circumstances. In July 1863, during the night of the 4th, General Lee began to retreat southward, and the storm was coming down on them, drowning the countryside with water. And when they got to the Potomac, it was flooded and they couldn't pass. They were trapped. The Union Army was coming up behind them, and Lincoln saw this and he wired him. They had telegraph back then. And he says, attack. Don't call a council of war. That's what they usually did. Attack him. Well, we'll have him. This will be the end of the war right here. Attack. Well, you know what General Meade did? He did just the opposite. In direct violation of Lincoln's orders, he hesitated. He procrastinated. He called a council of war. What did he do that for? Finally, the waters receded and Lee escaped with his armies, with his people. Lincoln was furious. What does this mean? Lincoln cried to his son Robert. Great God, can you see this tall man with a beard and everything? Great God, what does this mean? We had them in our grasp. We had only to stretch forth our hands, and they were ours. Yet nothing I could do or say could get that army to move. By the way, on the other side of the coin, since my ancestors are from Virginia, they call this the War of Northern Aggression. Gee, I wonder why. But anyways, what did President Lincoln do? He wrote a letter reprimanding General Meade, but never sent it. Why? My guess is, and this is only a guess, that after writing the letter, Lincoln looked out of the window and said to himself, just a minute. Maybe I ought not to be too hasty. If I was there, if I was in General Meade's shoes, and if I'd seen the blood and the gore and the death and the screaming of dying people, maybe I wouldn't be in the mood to go attacking just then either. I don't know what was going on. I wasn't there. So he says, anyhow, let's water under the bridge. If I send this letter, it will make me feel better. We ever do this? We say something mean when we think, yeah, but really it was unnecessary. Always think before you say something. Is this necessary? What are my motives? Anyways. So. He said, it will relieve my feelings, but it will make General Meade try to justify himself. It will arouse bad feelings and impair his further use as a general. It perhaps he will even resign from the army. So as I've already said, Lincoln didn't send the letter, for he had learned from bitter experience from his youth that sharp criticism and rebukes almost invariably end poorly. If you've read his history, he was very critical when he was younger and got into all sorts of trouble. So he learned the lesson. The next time we are tempted to admonish somebody, let's pull out a $5 bill. We'll just look at the picture of Lincoln and ask, what would Lincoln do if he had this problem? How would he solve it? Oh, the ancient Egyptians, they believed that the heart recorded all the good and bad deeds of a person's life. After a person died, they removed the heart and weighed it against the feather of Mat, which is the goddess of justice and truth. If a person had a decent life, according to the weighing of it, the heart balanced with the feather, and the person was considered worthy to live forever in paradise with Osiris. Let's not weigh each other's hearts. If I had a friend, if a friend has made a mistake, or a son, or just an acquaintance, the following phrase works miracles to soothe the ruffled spirits and help them find a way out of the mess they have created. Say to them, if I was in your place, I would have done the same thing. Yes, I've been told. Thank you for saying that. I'm not a bad person. Unity principle number 2. People are good. In this world, we are constantly being told to separate the bad people from the good, to separate those who keep the 10 Commandments from those who don't. Robert Kiyosaki wrote in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In school, we learn that mistakes are bad and we are punished for making them. Yet, if you look at the way humans are designed to learn, we learn by making mistakes. We learn to walk by falling down. If we never fell down, we would never walk. Rumi wrote, and this is one of my all-time favorites of his quotes, birds make great sky circles of their freedom. How do they learn it? They fall, and while falling, they're given wings. A beautiful and ancient legend, which you're all familiar with, is the story of Adam and Eve. It's one of my favorites because it explains with symbolism what I'm trying to explain today with words. In the garden, there was a tree of knowledge that gives a knowledge of good and evil to all those who eat of its fruit. Once Adam and Eve had eaten that fruit, they knew the difference between what is right, what is wrong, what is beautiful, and what is ugly. Each of us have our own tree of knowledge, which is our personal belief system. It is the structure of everything we believe, every concept, every opinion creates a little branch on this tree until we end up with a whole tree of knowledge living inside us. This inner tree is what tells us how to separate bad people from good. This is part of being human. We're all do this. This is the human thing. Don't feel horribly bad about this. You want to be a lizard? I'm glad I'm human. Okay? We habitually separate everything into 2 categories, good and bad. The cheater from the honest, the victim from the villain. This tree makes everything so clear, as if we are waging the grand campaign, good versus evil, just like the 10 Commandments do, making life clear and orderly. But the truth is, without the tree, without our human tendency to judge everything black and white, just dissolve into grayscale. I suppose everyone feels that there is a hero in their story, but There are no heroes, no villains, just people doing the best they can. Let me repeat that. We are just people doing the best we can. And in the process of living our life the best we can, we learn to be better people. Rumi wrote, beyond the rightness and wrongness of things, there is a field. I will meet you there. Jesus said, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be that go in thereat. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Matthew chapter 7. I will add that if you make the list of thou shalt, which Jesus gave us, the only road, your only way to respond to life, this narrow road for you will be a super highway. By obeying the teachings of Jesus, keeping the 10 commandments will become as natural to you as walking or breathing. Embrace this road as Jesus taught, not in action only, but with your whole heart, soul, and mind, and rejoice in the freedom Jesus promised. Amen. So for meditation today, we're going to do that thing we talked about last week. We'll quiet our minds, taking a few deep breaths, straightening our posture, or smiling helps. And repeat the words that I speak softly in your mind as if you're pushing them off the edge of a cliff and they're falling into your subconscious and nesting there. But they may bring the fruits into your life that they represent. Thou shalt be humble. Thou shalt have a broken heart. Thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. Thou shalt be free. And Jesus said, as I have loved you, love one another. This new commandment, love one another. By this shall men know you are my disciples. If ye have love one for another. If you know the words, sing along with me. As I have loved one another, this is the man, love one another. I wish ye are my disciples. If ye have loved one for another,